This PSA was brought to you by the Peter G Show.
You may have second thoughts after the show.
Don't drink the faucet. We're really talented. We should get Oscars.
Just pick out a car, for Christ's sake.
No, my name is Peter.
Yeah, I want.
Here's good.
Yeah.
Madam Perry.
I need to get back in the genie bottle.
Louis from Pennsylvania, you're on. He likes it. It's showtime.
Peter G Show, Peter G Show, divorce dad, single dad, divorce dad, single dad, Peter G Show.
That's right. Wednesday it's showtime, and here we are. Just you and me and a few 100,000 million trillion of my favorite people. How is everybody? It's Wednesday, and what comes with Wednesday? Life with Peter G, the Peter G Show, right here, like clockwork, God willing. Hope everybody's doing well. I am happy to say that we made it through last week's heat wave. We didn't get shut down. We didn't have a rolling blackouts. You know, I'm right in the prime time of blackout time. Yes, good evening. People are starting to text already. But we did not have that blackout that I was so praying not to have, and that's a good thing. I said, just get me through the show. Give me an hour and 10, and then you can turn the lights off. It's all good. Once it goes out into infamy, we're good. The rest after that is just some work that we have to do afterwards, but it's just a matter of capturing things. And again, I told you the show's not on battery power. It's just not in the budget yet, but I'm working on it. Every day I get up striving for bigger, better, more funner. Anyway, speaking of happy, who doesn't like happy? Tonight, good stuff. It's going to be a very, I've been going very inspirational these past few weeks, and I'm going to continue to be doing that, but see if this works. Woo, right there. Suitcase of Happyness. He's going to be on. Mr. Happyness himself. Mark Jaffe is going to be on in just a few minutes, so I wouldn't want to, I'd buckle up. I'd go get yourself something to drink, sit down, have a seat, and check out Suitcase of Happyness. A roadmap to achieve and enjoy your happiest life. Now, come on. I think everybody wants that. But it doesn't always happen that way. And we're going to talk to Mark about this. And he's living proof. I think we're all living proof. I don't think anybody is just born gifted without a care in the world. I don't care if you're worrying over $5 or $500,000. The worry is the same. But we're going to talk to him about that and just coming up in just a few minutes. So get ready. Speaking of which, next week, I'd like to tell you, give you a heads up. That way you can start pre-planning, cancel your plans on Wednesday, make plans for here on Wednesday, as always. I mean, I'm not trying to tell you what to do. I'm asking you, like, you're not going to want to miss this again because more positivity coming your way. I'm going to have Coach Dave on the show Wednesday, September 21st, life coach. I'm going to talk to him. I don't get life coaches on very often. I mean, I should, because you wouldn't think there's a need. It's like you know, somebody helping you, telling you what to do, but a different perspective means a lot. And especially I think anybody like drug counseling and things like that and alcohol counseling, they've all been there, done that, got the t-shirt. And sometimes you need somebody to go, listen, I understand, but you know, from what I'm seeing, this is, you know, let me help you. This is what you need to do. And that's what I'm going to do next week, Wednesday, September 21st, right here on this show. Coach Dave, life coach. You know, sometimes, you know, everybody needs a little guidance. Everybody needs a little bit of understanding, and it goes a long way. And he'll help you find your way, and we'll pick his brain and see what, you know, what's going on in that whole thing. But again, it's all about life, and wow, you've come to the right place. Life with Peter G, the Peter G Show, right here. Thank you for tuning in. Speaking of tuning in, for those of you who don't have time, I love the fact that you take the time to sit and watch the show. I think watching the show is a hell of a lot. There's a lot more to give, between facial expressions and little things here and there. But taking it on the road with you is real good too. You put an earbud in your ear and Google Peter G Show podcast. It's on 20 different platforms, from the iTunes podcast, which is probably the biggest, but you got your Amazon podcast, Spotify, all those. You can take the show and at least listen to it while you're in the car. I know people love podcasts. They just love listening to this stuff. So here we are. Take advantage of it. You can catch all the shows from the past. Everything's on demand. It's free. We're givers. We enjoy doing this, but it's like the motivation is you, the people. And you can take it and just check us out. Go to Peter G Show podcast. Google it. Pick whatever platform you want to watch it on, and then watch it on. Listen to it on, and that's it. Amongst the other platforms live where you can watch your YouTubes, your Facebooks, your LinkedIn's, your and all the shorts. Don't forget on Instagrams and TikToks and all that. We're everywhere. Can't get away. We'll get you one way or another. But thank you again for watching. And now, without further ado, I said I was going to bring in some happiness, and I promised to deliver, because that's what I do. So without further ado, I want to introduce, hang on a second, because I already know I better prep. Smooth. Yes. It's going to be a plethora of information. And without further ado, I want to introduce my new friend and friend of the show. Ladies and gentlemen, a lot of information here, and you're going to be pretty well entertained because, again, won't disappoint. Mr. Mark. Mark Jaffe. Mark, how are you?
Wow. Well, now that I got a drum roll, I'm doing great.
You know what? We pull out all, we don't hold back here at the show. There's just, can't like, we pull out all the stops.
I can tell. Well, it feels great to be with you, and what a wonderful introduction.
Well, the thing is, what a wonderful book. I got to tell you, I'm not an avid reader. I know people who can, my daughter, thank God, can read a book a day if she has the opportunity and the time to do it. I have a hard time reading, keeping my interest. But as I've gotten older, I've become more intrigued with life. So everything having to do with life, and obviously when you get older, as you go through the years of being lucky enough to live, through every year and get to another age, you go through stuff, and your book is about stuff and going through it.
Yeah, it's funny you say you don't like to read. So the two things that I don't like to do is I don't like to write, and I don't like to be alone. So why in the world was I writing a book? I mean, you have to be alone and you have to write. The two things I hate.
Wow. See, that's and that's weird because, okay, I don't want to go off topic, but again, so the pandemic, lots of people were alone and going nuts. Were you one of those people?
I wasn't alone, but actually the quote I remember about the pandemic, which I love, is never have so many spent so much time with so few. And it really just defined our existence, didn't it?
Well, it did. But see, I don't have a problem. Like I grew up an only child, and I don't know, maybe that helped. But when I was a kid, I went nuts on Sundays when all my friends, their families were all out doing stuff, or they had, but I kind of got used to it now. I enjoy company, but if I am alone, I always find something to do. But again, everybody's different. And I don't like to write either. I'm not a grammatical person, if that makes any sense. I'm very visual.
So here's the odd thing. The more I sat down to write this book, the more I wanted to write it, and the happier I felt. Like I couldn't wait to be alone and write. And I'm thinking, how's that possible? And it's because writing about happiness almost embodies the happiness you feel because of what you're writing about. And I just started to look forward to being alone. I looked forward to writing. I said, wow, I'm going to have a happy Saturday because the whole day is writing.
Wow. Well, that's because you were getting into it. And if you're passionate about it, if you get that spark, I always get that feeling in my gut, and I don't get it a lot, but when I do, I know I'm onto something, and then I'm going for it. It's like I shut everything else out and I go for it, and so it's kind of different. But I'm just not as fluid. Like my eyes start jumping when I'm reading, and that always drove me nuts to try to focus. So therefore, it deterred me, and I rather listen to an Audible book or watch something than to be reading. I just can't. I hate to say that. I wish I could, but
haven't you found that when you're passionate, you're able to focus even more? That passion seems to multiply everything that it touches. You get in that state of flow, and all of a sudden 2 hours have passed and you can't figure out how that happened.
Oh, it's my driving force, passion. I mean, I truly believe in it. I mean, I've been like that since a child. I believe in doing what you love doing, which isn't easy for everybody. I've starved doing what I've loved doing, but still here, and happy.
This concept of passion reminds me of this story. There was a woman who I was very good friends with who was on a trip to Croatia, and she was staying with a friend who loved river rafting. And so they were planning to go river rafting the next day, and it was like 45 degrees. And this woman's thinking, it's 45 degrees. It was actually raining. The last thing I want to do is go river rafting and get drenched and be cold. And she realized that she had 3 options. Option number 1 was to say no. I don't want to do it. Let's be real. This is miserable. Option number 2 is to grin and bear it. And option number 3 is to embrace it and go with it. And she chose option number 3, and it was the most valuable and memorable and fun part of her trip. And by the way, she was freezing too. She was ice cold the whole time, but didn't notice it because she was passionately involved. And the book actually talks about the power of passion as one of the pathways to be happy, to embrace the passion, pursue the passion.
I get it. Here's what I want to do. I want to backtrack because I do want to get into your book. I want to start talking about pieces of your book and your just some brief explanations over some of the chapters. But let's go backwards, because what I really find that really sets you up, that got me interested, was your past. Let's tell everybody real quick, if you can, just a synopsis of who you were back 10 years ago and how you got to be who you are now.
Yeah, well, actually, the who I was, 40, 50 years ago was this shy little kid in New York who had one friend who wasn't really liked either. And how do I get to be the person I am today, who's very outgoing, who finds it easy to talk to people, easy to make friends? And I realized that when my parents decided to move to California, it was this opportunity for me. It was an opportunity to completely remake myself and decide to be someone brand new, because the kids in California had no idea what my past was like. And so because I was shy, I sat on the wall and watched popular kids. What made them really popular, and how could I embrace those traits? That kind of spontaneity, that casual laughter, and that comment that people find funny and interesting, that sense of confidence. And going cross country, we would go to campgrounds where all the teenagers would get together in the rec room after dinner. And I had this amazing risk-free practice area where I could practice all my techniques on trying to be popular. And if I failed miserably, which I did quite often, I'd never see the kids again. They would be going to a different campground the next day. And by the time I got to California, I had this great degree of confidence that I could accomplish that, and I did. And what I find is that what you focus on, you find. And if you focus on being more confident, if you focus on being more popular or whatever's important to you, you actually find that.
Yeah, but here's the thing. As you got older, I mean, I get it, but people can change, and you're a kid and you're shaping yourself up. But as you got older, you came to California, and you just didn't come to California and got a job, just an average job at the store or something like that. You went to work for Disney, correct?
Mhm.
Okay, and you got involved in you were, kind of at a good level of opportunity there and had a pretty decent job. You weren't like the guy who swept Disney parking lot, correct?
No, I actually ran Walt Disney Records. I was responsible for Little Mermaid, The Lion King, Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, all those great soundtracks. It was truly the opportunity of a lifetime.
That's got to be a decent job. I mean, maybe there's some pressure in there, but tell me a job that there isn't,
You know what? I mean, the Walt Disney Company establishes a really high bar for success, which
Yeah.
is alternately terrifying and so gratifying and motivating. And it was probably one of the best jobs I've ever had.
Were you there during like the Hannah Montana days as well, or was that after you?
That was after me. That was
Okay.
after.
But again, so you were in the business, I mean, that's what Hollywood's all about, the Valley, Burbanks, and if you're in this business, and so you were kind of, you had a decent job. I mean, that you were probably went to some of the best things, events, and I mean, the records I see behind you. I mean, there's some things showing. It's like, hey, you got a record, so you had some hand in it, and but you went from all that, and then life kind of changes, and just things that you don't really expect. I mean, so how did you go from, hey, I'm almost, I'm sitting pretty, and then all of a sudden a change?
Yeah. So there's this concept of acceptance. I mean, there's lots of disappointments. I mean, like you, I was married, and it was a great marriage until it wasn't, and I got divorced. Like many people, I've had people die that were close to me. And I've had career successes and career failures. And so how do you maintain your happiness as a result of that? It was very interesting. I was on another podcast literally 2 weeks after my mom died. And this podcast host was really just so excited, and we're going to talk about happiness, and we're going to have the happiest guy in the world. And I looked at her literally in the first 10 seconds and said, I don't want to burst your bubble, but I'm really not very happy right now. I mean, my mom just passed away.
Yeah.
And what unfolded was a different discussion than she'd want, but it was a very real discussion because, with COVID-19, as you pointed out earlier, we haven't been happy. So how can we still lead a happy life when things happen to us that don't make us happy? Can we really coexist with unhappiness? And I strongly believe happiness and unhappiness can coexist.
Yeah. Again, everybody's got a story, and that much I'm sure of, but everybody thinks it's just them. Why me? Death, I hate it. Even if you believe that there's better things beyond where we are here. I mean, some do, some don't, but I think we're the ones that suffer. The people that pass on. I just feel like we're the ones who have to bear the emptiness. And love is love. Love is a very powerful thing. And when it comes to your parents, I mean, hopefully most people love their parents or whatever. Some aren't so fortunate, and I don't. There ain't not a whole lot you can tell them or feel for them or whatever. But life does go on. And you learn not how to forget about it. You just learn how to live with it. But some people have a harder time at that than others. Some people just carry that burden and really, let it weigh them down.
Mm-hmm. Well, we can't ignore that burden. It's there. It's real. I mean, perception is reality. What you see is what you honestly believe. So how do you coexist with that? How do you coexist with the burden of death or the burden of failure?
Everybody's different. I don't know. A lot of people will coexist with it through the eyes of a whiskey bottle.
Mm-hmm.
Or
there are simple things you can do. There are I'll tell you about one of the most transformative experiences that I had. I was listening to a very famous monk, Thich Nhat Hanh, who was teaching a seminar at this convention that I was invited to. It was in 1995, Mikhail Gorbachev put on a conference called the State of the World Forum. And it was all these big names from Ted Turner to Carl Sagan to the president of South Africa. I mean, there were major people there talking about major things. But I went to this one seminar by Thich Nhat Hanh, and it wasn't a podium, it wasn't a microphone. We were in a room. There was one pillow in the front of the room, and on the pillow was an orange. That was it. We all sat on the floor, and he walks in and he says, "Today, I'm going to eat an orange." And you watched him slowly look at the orange, telling you about how it looks, the brightness of the color, the feel of the knobbiness of the orange, how he slowly would stick his thumbnail into the orange and that thin burst of spray, and how that fell to his nose and to his eyes, and how he, when he put it in, the feel of the skin breaking away from the fruit. And this went on for an hour until he finally ate the orange. And by that point, we were completely spent. It was, I mean, I'm not going to say it was better than an orgasm, but on some level, it was better than an orgasm. It was so intense. He had us so into that orange. And I realized that from the simplest things can come profound happiness. Because I witnessed it, I experienced it, and all of us were just drained at the end of it. We had gone through such a transformative experience simply by watching and listening to a man eat an orange.
All right, that's a hell of a statement to put it better than an orgasm, because I don't know, I don't judge. I don't know how everybody else's orgasms are, but
It's very funny. I was talking to someone about happiness because I was trying to figure out some definition of it. I mean, you could, is it exhilaration? Is it peacefulness and tranquility? Is it contentment? Is it raucous laughter? And one person said to me, happiness is like an orgasm. It is amazing and all too brief.
yeah, I want to get into your book. I just wanted to talk somewhat about, again, how do you go from, would you say you were happy before you wrote the book, or did you figure out after going through a bunch of stuff in life and then finding your version of happiness?
I think I was looking at myself and saying, you know what, I've been through a lot of stuff, and I'm a happy guy. I mean, on the whole, I am happy. And my immediate response was, I've got to call up my kids and say, hey, come on over. I'm going to teach you how to be happy, because I just realized I've been relatively happy for most of my life. And then I thought, my kids are going to look at me like I'm a nut job and they're never going to show up. So I decided to write this book for them instead. And I just literally sat down and outlined why I thought I was so happy. What are the experiences and what are the things that I do? Because I'm not anything special. I'm a normal guy. I had a middle-class upbringing. I have had a couple of amazing jobs, a couple of crappy jobs like anybody else, 2 kids and a number of dogs. But there's nothing that separates me. I don't have a PhD in happiness. I'm not learned on the subject. I'm just writing about the things that I believe people can do, like real practical things that I just intuitively started to do to be happier, and they worked.
Look, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is to write a book, because I feel like I'm 3 books behind already personally, because I can't get myself to do it, although I have it, and I keep saying I should do it and I should get it out. How do you go? Because my divorce personally was not a happy time in my life. It was a very long period of beginning in over my head and then slowly recovering from the collateral damage of divorce. Now, some divorces are amicable, not many, but we all go through a harsh time, especially when there's children involved. And what gets you to go from, a few bad experiences and then go, you know what, not only am I happy, but I'm going to write a book about it?
I think you need the catalyst. The catalyst for me was I wanted to share it with my kids. I wanted to give them kind of a legacy of why I've been a pretty happy person for the vast majority of my life. How I've been able to face adversity and work through it to become more happier than unhappy, and then eventually back to my original state of leading a happy, content life that gives me lots of joy. And it was really for them. That was the catalyst.
Well, that's a good catalyst, because I know personally, I mean, I never knew it until I only have one, but until I had my child, I mean, the joys you get from doing, especially for them, or to them, for them things. I mean, I enjoy just the little things like cooking for her, because she appreciates eating my food. She's not ultra picky. So these are just little things that's like, hey, you want to come over and eat? I'm going to cook this and that. And it's like, if she's not too busy now, because she's getting older, and so it's the little things in life. And so a child's getting you, to do something inspirational. I can see that, and that's a cool thing. But I want to go through a few chapters, not go through them, but I want to ask you a couple of questions about the titles of them, if you don't mind.
Sure.
We'll do that, because I don't want to miss this. And I wrote a few down, and let me go where we're going for here. Okay, so I found this kind of quirky. The journey to happiness with a punch in the face. That's one of your chapters, right?
Yeah. So the history behind that is that, I was this shy guy, and, this one guy who is smaller than me knew that I was probably a really good target to pick on and to raise his social stature. He decided that he was going to pick on me, and he did. And I went home and I told my dad about it, and my dad was a boxer, a pretty good boxer, semi-pro, amateur, army boxer. And he brought home a punching bag the next day, and he taught me how to punch. And the next time this guy picked on me, I reeled back and I just punched him in the face, not knowing that you're not supposed to punch people in the face. And like the socially acceptable rules of my junior high school was you can push, you could punch, but it has to be between the waist and the shoulders. It can't be in the face, because that's like a cardinal sin. You're like brutal if you do that. And so the whole time, all these kids are coming up to me going, Jaffe, in the face. Like I was like some sort of action hero all of a sudden. And I realized that I can take control of my life.
It makes a point.
I could take control and change my life. And that's how it started for me.
Did you feel empowered from that point on?
Oh my God. I hoped I never had to do it again, but I
Yeah,
felt incredibly empowered. How often do we serve as reactionaries to other people's inputs into our life? I mean, we can never control what other people say or do to us. We can always control our response to it. And we could always control the things that we initiate. And the ability to control our destiny is unbelievably powerful. And the same is true for our happiness. We can, to a certain degree, control our happiness. Of course, there are things that, like we discussed earlier, death, divorce, that can overwhelm us. But for the most part, we can control our happiness. And there are lots of specific things we can do to do that.
I've always said, I would see, I used to, there's lots of people that have a family of 5 or 7, and they live in a 2-bedroom apartment, and they're happy as hell, and then you got these people that have these lavish lifestyles, and these mansions and, 6,000 square foot homes, and they're miserable. And so I don't get that. I don't think I could be that miserable, but everybody's different.
Well, you could be miserable, but very comfortable.
Comfortably miserable. Yeah. I don't know. Because I think that misery just takes away a lot of that comfort too. It's a slippery slope, so to speak.
Well, they actually have done a number of studies on income and happiness, and the one that I remember basically said, $75,000 to $100,000 is pretty much all you need to cover the basics of your comfort. And after that, it's just, a more plush couch, another 2,000 square foot to your house. But the happiness part is up to you after that. I mean, let's face it, it's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you're hungry and you don't have shelter, it's hard to really be concerned with love and self-actualization.
Yeah, it's again, there's so many different variables of not being happy. What pushes that button, as well as so many different ways to be happy. I mean, a drug addict could be happy just doing drugs, which is sad, but they'll look at you and go, "I'm fine, man," which your perspective is depending on the individual, and that's I don't want anybody to be happy in that manner, but the thing is, they're not complaining. I knew a guy, and he was he smoked crack, and he was a good guy. That was his thing, and he was kind of like a side mechanic, and he'd work on people's cars, for a lot less money, and sometimes you get what you pay for, because he would do things by process of elimination. But back in the day when you could work in cars, but he was happy. He literally lived outside somebody's house in a van, not down by the river under a bridge, but but he lived, and he was happy. I never heard the guy bitch. I want to check and see if he's still alive, because I'd like to have him on the show, because it's just fascinating on what happiness is. I mean, I'm not advocating for that, but the thing is, it's just an example of simplicity. The man had no bills, he had no mail to worry about, all that kind of stuff, and he was just happy, making a few bucks and doing his thing. But again, I don't advertise for that, but it's just pick your happiness. How everybody's happy in different ways.
Well,
Money.
we talk about money and how money doesn't bring happiness, or how most of us think it does. But if you think about success, every time you climb a new rung to be more successful, is that a rung to happiness, or just another rung to be more successful? I mean, I remember when I was accumulating my nest egg, and I was talking to a buddy of mine who's a real estate investor, and I said, man, I should get into real estate. There's a lot of money to be made in real estate. I'm going to go out and I'm going to find a property. So I find this property. I'm about to pull the trigger on it. And my buddy calls me up. He goes, why are you doing it? I said, well, I want to be rich. You're making all this money on real estate. He goes, but you're happy where you're at. You start to buy this property. Then you got to deal with tenants and evictions and repairs. Do you really want that hassle in your life? And I didn't buy the property. I didn't want that hassle in my life. It's a conversation that would detract from things I like to do.
You can have a management company deal with all that stuff. I'm just saying. I don't know. I mean, I think you can have it all. I mean, look, I say it on this show a gazillion times. I don't think that money buys happiness, but it damn sure helps if you got a decent head on your shoulder. It helps, enjoy your happiness.
Yeah. I mean, listen, it's better. What's the saying? It's something like money doesn't buy happiness, but it sure is nice to be rich.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt, but again, there's a lot of people. I think we talked about it last week. I don't even know, but you've read the stories about the guy hitting the lottery, and all of a sudden his life he gets divorced, his grandchildren OD because he gave them all this money and did all this stuff. He goes to strip clubs, and somebody ripped off $200,000 in a briefcase out of his car. I mean, he just lost it all. I mean, that's pure stupidity in my mind, but that was money. He had the opportunity to be great the rest of his life and enhance people's lives, but he did it the wrong way.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about when I was married. I lived in this very large house in a very exclusive gated community. And when I got divorced, I moved to an apartment in Santa Monica. That was 20% the size of that house. And I was happier in that apartment than I was in that house.
I can see that too sometimes, but I mean, it depends. You were happier not in the house because of your situation, or because the house, with a big house comes big everything?
Well, it was because of the situation. But,
Okay.
But when you think about it, the nice couch, the pool, those are all just accoutrements. They're vehicles with which you can achieve happiness. They're not happiness in and of itself. They're vehicles to achieve happiness. Same with money. How many times have you gone on this amazing vacation that sucked?
Yeah, I don't, vacations to me, I'm kind of weird this way. I'm telling you, people going, God, I can't wait till I go on my vacation. If you're having issues before you leave, going away and then coming back to the same shit in your life is not going to change it. You're not going to wash them away. So you got to start with the root cause. Now, vacations are great, but I don't call them vacations. I just call them lucky just to go do something different. I don't need them. You know, I mean, if I'm not happy at home, it's like I'm not gonna, you know, sugarcoat it.
Well, what's interesting is that I wrote about this too. I think we should live our lives as if we're on vacation. Like I remember I went to Newfoundland. You want to know why I took my family to Newfoundland? Because it was the furthest I could go with 25,000 American Airlines miles. And I thought, how cool would it be to take the furthest trip possible? So we landed in Newfoundland, and I don't know if you've been to Newfoundland. It's beautiful, but there's really not a lot to do there. As a matter of fact, the first day we were there, we go to this cafe, and the waitress comes up to us, and she's like, "Welcome to Newfoundland." And we're like, "Oh, we're so excited to be here." And we're on vacation. She goes, "Why would you come here?" I mean, and I started to ask myself the same question. And the next day, we went out to this old, beat-up dock with these rusty, ugly fishing ships. And there's this guy on his ship. And so we started going up and talking to him. He said, "Come on the boat. I'll show you around. I'll tell you about fishing." One of the best days ever on vacation because we were open to discovery. Why can't we do that in our hometown? How many times do you walk down the street, you see something kind of cool, but you're in a rush, so you don't check it out?
Absolutely. I think because I used to tour a good bit in my day musically, and I think that everybody, that place that you go to where they live, they think it sucks. You know, and yet everybody who goes on vacation brags about how wonderful this place or that place is. I go, yeah, that's because you're there for like 2 weeks, maybe. You know, and so it's just, again, perspective. It's just all different. I take everything with a grain of salt, but I'm grateful for all of it. But I got to keep moving with these things. I could have a 3-hour conversation with you. Lack of perspective, another chapter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're talking about perspective. So here we are. Segue.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm into adventure trips, and I've spent a lot of time with indigenous tribes. I mean, just last month I was in Tanzania with one of the last hunter-gatherer tribes in the world, and went on one of their hunting expeditions. But a number of years ago, I took my 15-year-old son to Panama, and we spent time with an indigenous tribe in Panama. And these people lived in huts with no doors. They had no possessions. We would talk about the guy in the green shirt because he always wore a green shirt. It was his only shirt. And we went through like 3 or 4 days living with these people, going out and to the plantations, harvesting corn with them, and really just being with them and enjoying their company. And they were dirt poor. They had absolutely nothing. But they were smiling, they were happy, they were conversing, they were enjoying the daily rituals of life, not just for us. We were the only 2 Westerners in their village, but I would look at people that weren't with us, and they were happy. And so I remember on our last day, the motorized canoe was coming up the river to meet us, and it had to wait for high tide because the river was too low for it to get to this particular tribal area where we were. And so my son and I are sitting on the riverbank, and he's 15, living a very privileged life in an expensive house in a beautiful community. And I remember seeing these kids take off their underwear, put it on their head, and then stark naked go into the water. These are 10, 12-year-old kids, and they're splashing and laughing and diving around and throwing the mud at each other. And my son says, "Why do those kids have underwear on their heads?" And I said, "Because they're in the mud. That's probably their only pair. And if it gets muddy, they got to wait for someone to wash it before they can wear their underwear again. So they put it on their heads to keep it clean." And he just looked at me kind of odd. And I thought, I'm going to ask him a question. And I said, "Jason, who has the better life? You and all your rich friends in Hidden Hills, Calabasas, or these people?" And he stopped, and he looked at me, and he stared and didn't say anything for the longest time. And then he said, "I don't know." And I realized at that moment, he was given the gift of perspective.
Yeah, well, hell, I mean, when it comes to running around naked with your underwear on your head, we did that last Saturday night, leaving the rainbow. You know, it was just in Hollywood.
Why do you need to talk to me about happiness? You know how to do it.
Yeah, we just shit just happened. I mean, I don't know. That's, they said we had a good time, but I assume I was happy.
You
But-
just don't remember. That's the problem.
Yeah, I just went with the flow, and before you know it, I overflowed. But destructiveness of anger.
Yeah, so that's one of the blocks. I mean, there are a number of things that block you from being happy, and anger. There's a great quote by the Buddha, and once you hear this quote, you'll wonder why you hold on to anger. The Buddha says, holding on to anger is like drinking poison and hoping the other person will die. And think about that. When you're angry, you're miserable. Like, why hold on to anger? You're not doing the other person, any harm. You're only harming yourself. And so the destructiveness of anger is a real block to your happiness. Until you can resolve that anger, you can't be happy. You can't get beyond this destructive emotion.
This is where age and wisdom comes in, because it's easier said than done, my friend. For a lot of people, easier said than done.
Well, there are a couple of things you can do. I mean, we've talked about control a little bit. Control is an amazing way to get past anger. Anger often comes from being in this maelstrom of emotion. And once you can control certain outcomes that deal with your anger, all of a sudden you're able to resolve it more. You feel more empowered. And empowerment is a big counter to anger. Anger often comes from frustration and inability. And when you're empowered, you're able to move past, on occasion, that anger. And also logic works. If you could logically deduce certain outcomes as opposed to just being caught in the maelstrom of emotion, that also can help you work past that anger. But it's hard to put in the logical brain when you're in the emotional anger brain.
You just said it. It is very hard. When you're in that emotion, the logic goes out the door, and it's like, hey, what about me? And then it's the afterthoughts, I woulda, shoulda, coulda, for some. Some just keep on doing it. I mean, I'm telling you, this has been a slow process, even for myself. My life, I consider myself, I had a good bit of control on my life. But after my divorce, it changed my life. I chose to change my life. I had different things that came into my life, a young child. I had to make different decisions. It wasn't just about me anymore. It could have been about me, but I didn't let it be about me. And no, no regrets. There's my happiness. But you make different choices, and your life takes different turns that a lot of people like, wow, I didn't see this coming. You think you can do this, and then it doesn't happen the way you want it to. And it's learning to accept what's happening and what to do about it, but easier said than done.
Well, I'll tell you, the hardest one is acceptance. There was a resistance to the acceptance. I mean, I remember when someone who I loved very, very dearly passed away, and I had a real hard time getting past it. And this one guy said to me, he's such a smart guy. He said, Mark, just talk about how miserable you are and say it out loud. Say, I'm really miserable that she passed away. I am really miserable. I'm like, that's the dumbest thing in the world. Why would I ever do that? I know I'm miserable. I'm the only one who's listening when I say it. He goes, trust me, it works. And so because I was just at the end of my rope, I just figured, okay, I'll start doing it a couple of times a day. And it worked. Slowly but surely, it reinforced, 1, I am miserable. 2, she is dead. And 3, I can slowly start to move on from that feeling to a different feeling. And acceptance is, we all think we're accepting, we're not. We're fighting.
Yeah, you want what you want, and in your mind, it's like, why not?
Mm-hmm.
Things are beyond our control. But this is the same thing going into this, the endless pursuits of success.
Right.
What
Because
does that mean?
it basically means that it's never, how do you know when enough is enough?
Good question.
Once you want, you want more. There's always going to be a richer guy than you. There's always going to be someone with a nicer dog. There's always going to be someone with a bigger house, a nicer car. So when is enough enough? How do you discern when enough is enough? And my simple explanation is the ability to do what I want when I want to do it. When I'm able to do that,
Yeah.
that's when I have enough.
That's a nice feeling. You know, that is a nice feeling if you, hey, I want to go out to dinner. I mean, I don't know, you know, if you eat out or if you're a man who cooks or you know, I like to cook, but going out to dinner now with the way things have gone up, the economy, everything, it's expensive to go out and eat. I mean,
Yeah,
more,
so
you
if
know,
you're the type of person that loves to go to $400 dinners, then you need to make more money than the person who likes to go to $80 dinners. And 400's nice, but it's not that important.
and then there's the pressure of making the money to be able to go do that kind of stuff. I mean, if you could do it, great, but it's just nice to go out to dinner, you know, period. And if you do that a lot, even little things like Starbucks, believe it or not, people are watching their dollars, you know, that work at Walmart's, Targets. You don't make a whole lot of money, but it's a little pleasure of, like, I'm not a coffee drinker, but I do like those caramel frappuccinos. They just drive me, you know, it's not good on my girlish figure, but I like them. But they're $6 a pop, you
Right.
know, and if you think one a day or something like that, you're making a payment to something throughout the month.
Yeah, so can I do what I want to do when I want to do it? And think about it. If you're involved in the endless pursuit of happiness, you don't get the when I want to do it because there's some business thing or some financial thing that you always have to deal with. But how do you know when it's enough? Is when you can do things that you want when you want to do it.
Yeah, well, there are those people that are, you know, they just, enough is never enough, and they're just constantly thriving to, they workaholics, and they just look at these billionaires. I mean, you know, isn't that enough? You know, a lot of these people, but they just keep on keeping on, and they love the thrill of the whole thing. I just think life is too short. You shouldn't, you know, just be thankful and live, but not live to work or all
Well,
that.
but their definition of happiness, achievement, power, fame, if that's your definition, then that's going to guide how hard you work and what you do.
Well, you
Come
know,
on.
I think everybody has to have, you have to have a level head on your shoulder and decide it is what happiness is. I told you, the guy that works a normal construction job with 5 kids and a wife in a 2-bedroom apartment, but he's happy because he's loves what he has. You know, he's grateful for what he has, and it may not be the greatest things, but they're happy. So it's like, don't preach to me about, your friggin' Lamborghini, is acting up or whatever, and you got to go get it in the shop again. I don't care.
Well, for a lot of people, the joy of connection is happiness. I mean, think about how cool it is. So, that show years ago called Cheers, where everyone in the bar knows your name? I mean, how much fun is that? Going into a bar, seeing your buddies, hanging out, having a $5 beer?
Yeah. Oh, no, that's Pepsi. Pepsi's not here today, but he's, today is National Sober Day, so he's out celebrating.
There you go.
No, true story. Let me ask you something about the rule of yes. What does that mean?
So we all say no too often. I mean, think about, just in as example, an improv program. Improv, the comedy improv, is built on the rule of yes and. So the first actor on stage might say, "Hey, did you see that pig running down the center aisle of the train?" And the next person says, "Yeah, he had an apple in his mouth and there was a chef with a big cleaver who was after him." And this first guy goes, "Yeah, and he took that cleaver, cut up the apple, and made apple strudel right there on row 23. And they go off on some big comedic thing where they keep adding on to the story. But now imagine the first guy said, "Hey, did you see that pig running down the center of the train with the apple in his mouth?" And the other guy goes, "No." That's it. Story's over. And that's what happens when you say no. How many times has your partner or spouse come up to you and said, "Hey, how about if we do this?" You go, "Yeah, not into it."
Well, yeah,
What would have happened if you would have said yes?
We'd go broke. Every day.
But when you say yes, you open yourself up to a moment of happiness that would not have happened if you said no. I mean, I was with my kids in Iceland. We had this whole trip planned. We're doing this on day 1, day 2, day 3. And the year we're there, Iceland, believe it or not, is one of the quarterfinalists in the World Cup. I mean, they didn't even have a soccer team. They basically had a bunch of high school kids who were good at soccer who petitioned the president and said, "Hey, how about if we become the soccer team?" So they're in the quarterfinals. We change our entire program to watch the quarterfinal match on this big hill in Reykjavik, and we missed out on seeing this amazing waterfall that we could now not include in the trip. So it's 10 o'clock at night. We decided, let's drive towards the waterfall anyway. What a great thing to do to see this soccer game and be there with these Icelandic people, and they're doing the thunder clap where 10,000 people clap at the same time. I mean, it was amazing, even though Iceland did lose, just as a postscript. But we go to the waterfall. There's still a little bit of light. So we go behind the waterfall. And because of the way the light was shining, the water, I swear to God, was bright orange. The entire waterfall was bright orange. And I realized at that moment that had we not changed our plan to see the soccer match, we would have never seen the most spectacular waterfall we'd each ever seen in our lives. That's a moment of happiness that had we said, no, got to stick to the plan, which we all do too much, we would have never had.
See, that's again, perspective, because in my coming up, I had to learn to say no because I took on too many. Sometimes, well, that was more from a business aspect, I guess. You know, there was just too many things, and it's like you didn't want to say no because you know, the minute you say no to some opportunity or somebody's offering you, they don't call you anymore. Those kind of things.
No, I'm talking about saying yes to experience, yes to different things that could become part of your reality. I mean, I'll tell you one time I said no. I was on a scuba diving trip in Belize, and usually you do 3 dives. And on my 3rd dive, I was just kind of exhausted. I just wanted to sit in the sunshine. And so the dive master's like, you can't not do a dive. We're all going down. I said, nah, I'm good. I'll just sit in the sun. So 40 minutes later, they all come up and they're buzzing. They're like chatting, like, oh my God. And I'm like, what happened? They said, we were diving near a school of dolphins that wanted to play with us underwater. And I missed it.
I thought you were going to say they just ate Charlie. You know, the shark.
No, but I missed it because I said no.
Well, yeah, you know, I again, hindsight is 20/20. I mean, you could get worn. I get if you're wore out. You know, something told you not to go do that. But yes, you missed it. But I don't know. You're still here. It's all
right,
good.
I could have been eaten by a shark. You never know the negative part. But listen, what you focus on, you find. If you focus on looking for happiness, if that becomes part of what's important to you in life, you're going to find more happiness than if you didn't focus on it.
Well, no doubt. Which is, again, happiness. I want to ask you this, and this is very big in my book that I don't have in my heart, but the gift of gratitude. That's a chapter in your book. Talk about it.
Yeah, gratitude multiplies everything it touches. My mom used to, every time we'd go on a hike or have an experience that was an amazing experience, she would just look us in the eye and say, bottle it, preserve it. And when you express gratitude, you are actually acknowledging that moment in a way that preserves it forever. It preserves it as a permanent part of your own personal suitcase of happiness that you could always take back. I mean, gratitude is such an amazing practice. It's so easy to be grateful for the smallest things. I mean, I'm grateful for the opportunity to have this conversation with you. I'm grateful for the fact that I had these new types of grapes, grateful grapes, these new types of grapes today, these tiny little things that tasted amazing. I so enjoyed it. I mean, there's a tradition in Judaism to say this term, this prayer called the Shekianu prayer, which is an acknowledgement of gratitude. And what it means in English is you're thanking God for bringing you to this moment so you could have this experience.
Sure.
What an incredible expression of gratitude. I'm so happy to be alive right now, because if I died an hour ago, you and I would have never had this conversation.
That is correct. I think a lot of this wisdom or philosophy or acknowledging things, little things like this, I just think it takes time, unfortunately. I think You know, would you say when you were working for Disney, you had all these thoughts?
No.
You didn't
I
have
mean, I
time.
hate to say it, but a lot of these thoughts happen because of hardship.
Exactly.
Hardship is a great teacher. I hate to say it. I don't want any more hardship. I mean, I've had enough. I've learned a lot. I don't need more, but God forbid I have another hardship. I'll try to learn from that too.
It's definitely definitely a character builder. That's for sure. It can make you or break you one way or the other. That's a choice, a sad choice, a hard choice. If you let it, it will break you. I've seen many people get broken, and now that's why another reason of sharing these stories and talking about this. A lot of people don't know how to communicate, and they feel they're very alone and won't speak out and get very private. And I just figure we're sharing these stories because you know you're not alone. They're not the pioneers in the hardship department.
Well, it was interesting. There's a close business colleague that I told that I was writing this book, and I actually gave him a copy, and he read it, and he was, very complimentary. But then he said, "How in the world could you have written this book? You reveal so much about yourself, and now people in business are going to see these things. You're going to lose all your clients." And I thought, I think people, while they're businessmen, they're men. While they're businesswomen, they're women. They're humans. And they embrace the human experience. And the people that have less respect for me because I'm being vulnerable are not necessarily people I need to do business with. I think vulnerability, and there are lots of authors who talk about vulnerability and the value of being vulnerable. It's a gift to give to someone else, is to show them vulnerability so that you both can learn from each other.
And I dare say that a lot of these people probably won't read your book anyway because they're off in their own little worlds. No disrespect to the book, because I think the book is great. But you know what I mean. It's they're off in their own worlds, and that's your life, and they're busy with their own lives. And I say a lot of things. Don't judge my kindness with weakness. It's
right.
Two different things. Last one, because we got to go, unfortunately. But I love this: the serenity of peace.
Yeah, it's one I'm still working on. I'd like to say I've mastered that one, but I remember I was talking to my parents about and asking them to share some of their happiest moments, and they told me about this time that they were on a cruise ship, and it was like 11 o'clock at night, and they were looking out over the bow, and it was dark, and it was the moon was lit, and everybody else was asleep, and that was it. And I said, "Wait, so then what happened? Did you guys have to tell a joke? What? No, that was it." And I'm like, "Why was that one of your happiest moments?" And they said, "Because we were at peace. We were together. We were on the bow of a ship. We had led a good life together. We were happy. We were at peace. That was one of our happiest moments." And I've always strived for inner peace, and occasionally I achieve it, but very often I don't. And it's something I'm still trying to learn how to do.
We live in a world that there's so many distractions. I mean, to have that inner peace. I mean, you could have it, but it could be there, but at the same time, you're doing 10 other things and not being able to enjoy it. Intent is there.
Yeah, I've heard that stated when it comes to meditation, that we all think we have to go home and be in this little bubble and nothing's in here, but it's not. In meditation, you could have thoughts that come in and go out, and so the same is true for being at peace. You have a thought, you deal with it, then you could go back to being at peace. But as we've talked about, it's much easier said than done, because I still struggle.
It's something to strive for, but at least if you have the thought in your head, you have something to go for. If you don't have that knowledge you won't think about it, you won't even understand it, to even be able to know that you're going for it. And you might even have it and don't even know it, because it comes with time and age, and people sharing these concepts and turning them into realities. But I like this book a lot. I'm going to spend more time with it as the time goes on, because again, I pick up things, I put them down, I pick them up when I can. But this book right here, let's tell people how they can get a hold of you. And you have a website, correct?
I do suitcaseofhappyness.com. It has lots of thoughts and interesting things on it. It obviously has a link to buy the book, and I invite you to stop by and check it out.
Yeah, and your book is available on the website too, as well as many other things. Correct? I mean, it's pretty.
Yeah,
It's a web.
you can get it on Amazon. It's on Amazon.
Okay, but and happiness is spelled with a Y, not an I, right?
Yes, it is, because it's a different type of happiness. It's not a fleeting moment here and there. It's actually a state of being. And I think it's possible. I've achieved it. And I think with some very simple things that we discuss in the book, you can too.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you taking the time to come on this show right here and helping to enlighten and spread the word, because when it comes to happiness, I don't think there's anybody that you can walk up to that says that they don't want to be happy. I think everybody wants to be happy. It's just a matter of how and when and if they choose to. But you've definitely shed some light, and I hope that this is the gift that keeps on giving for everyone. But if you want to find Mark Jaffe, you can go to his website, www.suitcaseofhappyness.com, where he can easily be. You can get his book, or you can read about him and see a lot of his, things that he's got out there for you, and even reach out to Mark, because you are right there, easy to get to. I got to you.
Yes, you did. Thank you
did.
so much for this, Peter. I've really enjoyed chatting with you.
No, it's been a pleasure, and I'm glad. Again, I thank you for being on the show, ladies and gentlemen. One more time, if you want to find Mark Jaffe and find out more about Suitcase of Happyness, go to www.suitcaseofhappyness, and his face will be right there. You take a picture, take a mental picture right there, and a picture of the book as well. Hold the book up, Mark. You got that book?
Sure, I have a copy.
There you go. Put it a little closer because the lights are too bright. Bring it closer to the
There
camera.
we go.
A little bit more. Wait a minute. You froze on me. That's a first. Okay, right there. Perfect. A little bit closer. A couple inches. There you go. Right there. Suitcase of Happyness. They'll find a picture of that book right there, and you can get that book through the website or on Amazon. And life is good because he found how to be happy, and fit it all in a suitcase. All right. Again, thank you so much for taking the time, and we'll talk to you down the road. Perhaps have you on again sometime, because I don't think we could ever reach enough people. There's always somebody out there grasping for happiness, and I mean, your book says it all, and you've even helped out tremendously by explaining some of the highlights of the book. So I thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Have a great
All right.
day.
There you have it. We'll talk to you soon, Mark. Thank you. Okay, folks. Happiness. I'm happy right now because the book talks about happiness. Mark talked about happiness. If you don't have some of these directions to get pointed to, sometimes it's right in front of you and you don't even realize it. It's like, wow, I didn't realize that. Not, wow, I could have had a V8. It's important. And little things like this, I mean, it takes time. When you're younger, you're running around and just life is a ball. And even with the problems, you find out that they're pretty menial, but life gets a lot more personal and deeper, I think, as you grow older. And that's why he, finally stood up and said, I want to write a book and talk about this stuff. I suggest, again, highly recommend the read if you have the time. Right there. Go to www.suitcaseofhappyness. Mark Jaffe's right there. And well, I'm on the show. Next year's another year. Who knows where we're going? We're just, again, God willing, every week right here, and bigger and better. But I tend to enjoy bringing people with the positivity. Oops, there I go again. Too much light. Holy moly! All right, there. The positivity of happiness and life, enjoying life, making the best out of your life while we're here. Some aren't that fortunate. And speaking of positivity, I want to remind you guys, next week, more positivity. Life coach, Coach Dave. Coach Dave is going to be here. He's going to be here with a little bit of guidance. We're going to talk about how he takes people and, people who need to be pointed in the right direction. They're having problems. And sometimes, family members can talk to you till you're blue in the face. It's like trying to tell your children something. And I mean, I'm sure they're listening to you, but I watch, God bless my daughter. I watch her and it goes in one ear and she's like, I can see it in her eyes. I mean, I know she's listening, but I'm like a broken record with a lot of stuff, as my mother was. But by the time I got into my 20s, I started taking to heart a lot of the stuff that she used to instill in me. It takes time. So a repetition. And you got people, life coaches, people like Coach Dave, who's going to be on this show September 21st, Wednesday, September 21st, going to be on this show, life coach, Coach Dave for you. And we're going to talk to him about how he helps people that just need that extra lift that you need, and again, he's not coaching because he just decided to be a life coach. You become through experience. Experiences. I'd love to tell you I didn't go through some of the crap that I went through, but I did. And again, this show was created because of past experiences in my life. And as much as we just talked about it with Mark, it's a lot of stuff I hope I never have to go through again. It wasn't pleasant, but I'm grateful for what I've gotten out of it. And I took that discomfort and displeasure and I turned it into something that I really now love doing. And love is a very big word too. And it's a huge word. Happiness and love. Like Ringo Starr. Peace and love. Peace and love. I used to make fun of him, but I totally get him now. And he's out there still killing it. That's it for this week. I thank those of you for watching the Peter G Show, Life of Peter G, right here. I remind you that if you don't have time to watch the show on demand, which you can find, or live, please don't hesitate to just go to the podcast. You can and take it with you in the car, put an earbud in your ear, listen to the show, and take it with you. When you're at work, who wants to be at work? Put an earbud in your ear so you can keep up. There's over 200 shows, almost 300 now, and something for everybody. Always trying to find things that push your button that you can relate to, that you enjoy, that you'll get something out of. And the jokes are free too. I apologize for Pepsi not being here. Or then again, you might be doing y'all a favor. It just depends. But as I said, today is National Sober Day, and he is out celebrating. So unfortunately, I gave him the time to go do that because I don't want that big hot mess on this show after he comes off of one of those binges. You don't want to know, and I'm doing you a favor. But that's it. My name is Peter G. You're watching the Peter G Show, Life of Peter G, every Wednesday right here, 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central, and 9 p.m. on the East Coast. Just remind you that life is a bitch. You don't have to take a bunch of crap from people, but you don't have to be an ass either. Be grateful. Deal with life the best you can and try to enjoy it and make the best out of it. Because one thing I know for sure, as you start getting older, life is short. And it's getting shorter, but I love it. And I hope you love it too. We'll see you back here next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. And as always, I love you guys. Peace out.
Peter G Show, Peter G Show, divorce dad, single dad, divorce dad, single dad, Peter G Show.